All right. Brandon, thanks so much for joining today, man. I am so excited to talk to you. This is the first time we talked since Vcon, actually, right?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you, having me on your platform.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure, man. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to Brandon here for joining us. Brandon is AKA Cartoon Connect, is an animator, cartoonist, and just an overall creative dude. We got to meet randomly at VCon. Actually, he and his friend Kristen came over to me and Damon when we were talking, hanging out, and actually introduced themselves, which I appreciate. I'm so glad you did that. But we had a cool conversation. How was the rest of VCon for you?
Man, it was great. I feel like we learned so much just by being there. I've been an entrepreneur for like 6 or 7 years, and I had never been to anything like that. And I feel like that was like the perfect space for the motivation that I needed at the moment too. So we met so many great people, learned so many cool things, and really came home with so much motivation to continue, doing what we're doing.
Oh, absolutely, man. I love the speakers they got to. They were pretty amazing and inspiring people just talking about their own experiences and stuff like that. And then that's one of the reasons I do the podcast. You can talk to folks like yourself who don't have the same platform as like Jesse Itzler, for example, right?
Yeah.
But who was your favorite speaker?
My favorite speaker was Eric Thomas. Before we even went to VCon, I listened to him almost every day. There was like a point in
Mhm.
my life where things were like not going well, and I would listen to him every morning on the way to work, and it really, changed my mindset and changed my life around. So to be able to see him in person for the first time was crazy, and it just seemed like the message that he had that day resonated with me like it just seemed like I was meant to be there in that moment to hear that specific message. So that was amazing.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from people at VCon, right? The idea of like being meant to be there and
Yeah,
being in the right place at the right time. I think there's definitely something to that, especially in business and in the world we're in, right? Like the entrepreneurial world. I can't talk today, man. The entrepreneurial world, right? There's definitely something to timing, right? To kind of like be in
yeah,
the right place at the right time. And it was something where like you're there and you're like you go there without expecting, you don't know what to, at least I didn't know what to expect because I didn't go last
yeah.
year, right?
Yeah, because
And
last year it was in like Minneapolis or something like that, and
Minneapolis.
that's a decent, ways from where I am. That's about like 8 hours. So the fact, well, no, maybe it's not 8 hours. I think it's Minnesota from Indiana. Maybe it is. I don't. It's a decent way, but
Yeah.
I couldn't go to that one. So the fact that the next one just happened to be in Indianapolis, somewhere where I could just get up and go to, it was like, yo, I have to go.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually happened to be my only free weekend that entire month, right?
Yeah,
Which was random for me because I don't really have a lot of free time when things get going, they get going. And it worked out really, really well. So that's really cool, man. So you actually have some really cool stuff going on, right? You got the puppet show, you got the cartoons you get working on, and for those of you who don't know, Brandon has a show coming out on Amazon soon. I don't know how much you can say about that, but I wanted to plug that a little bit for you. But
hey,
before we
thank
get
you.
to that, tell me, what was your journey like? Because I mean, as a creator, as a creative person, there's a lot of folks out there who struggle and don't make it, right? So how did you get to the
Yeah.
point where where did you start, and then how'd you get there?
So I started off just teaching myself how to make cartoons. It took me about 2 years of just watching tutorials and trying to do it. But I decided to just start putting cartoons out. Like I was like, you know what? I kind of got it figured out. Let's start making stuff. So I made my first cartoon. It was terrible. I feel like it's still on YouTube now, but probably one of my way older videos. But it was so bad, but it got like 5,000 views. And I was like, yo, like that's a lot of people. Like I don't even know 5,000 people. So I'm like, I think I have something here. So I was like, maybe it's just the idea. So I kept trying to put that same cartoon out, and it was, getting a decent amount of views. But then I was like, what's something that I can do to make the views go up? Like, what's something that I can grab people's attention with? So I started creating these parodies where I would take an old school cartoon like Hey Arnold, remix it, make it urban, change the characters around, and change the story around. And I did that. And at that time, I was like really big in being in Facebook groups. So I would post my stuff in different Facebook groups. But I found a Facebook group called Black Animators and Artists. So once I made that first parody cartoon, I posted it in that group, and that was the first time I ever went, I guess you could say viral, because I had thousands of shares for the first time. I had never seen that have been doing art for years and never seen that many shares. So that video ended up getting 100,000 views. And once I seen that, I was like, you know what? I think this is it. So just continued to keep doing different parody videos. A little while after that, I went to the hospital because I had to get surgery on my neck. And it turned into like a really bad situation. I was in the ICU unit, face mask, like couldn't talk. Like it was really bad. It was a situation that I didn't think I would make it through. And in that time when I couldn't talk, I had to just kind of sit there and think a lot. And I thought so much about animation and how I was just kind of doing it here and there. Like I wasn't doing it serious. And I told myself I was going to take it like serious when I got, like, if I got out of the hospital, because I was in a situation where I didn't know if I was going to get out of there. So once I got out, I would say a month later, I animated the cartoon, the first episode of Lil Ron Ron. Overnight. It did around 2.3 million views. My phone started going crazy. And at that point, that's when I was like, okay, here's this chance. I either got to run with it or, so we continued to do Lil Ron Ron episodes every single week. Eventually, my YouTube channel grew to 100,000 subscribers while I was still working at my embroidery job. I was a graphic designer there. And I was so hype about it. Like, I was like, okay, I could be working on work stuff, but I have 2 computers here. Let me animate. So I started animating while I was at work. Continued to run the numbers up. I remember hitting 500,000 subscribers at my job. And then I would say once I got around 800,000 subscribers, I quit my job and my boss was mad. I had a video of that too. I documented the whole thing, but I don't know what I did the video. But after that, I took it full time, and that was in 2017, 2018, I want to say. And it's been working since. I've been putting out the animations, Lil Ron Ron, which is the show that we're getting ready to get on Amazon Video. It's been approved to be on there, but they're still, getting things uploaded, so it's not on there yet. But hopefully it should be on there pretty soon. We're in our 12th season of animation for that, which is going to be the second season on Amazon. So the first season on there is already done. So that's really kind of how I got started. And now I kind of switched it over. I was like, if I can make it in animation, why can't I make it in content creation in general?
Yeah.
So I started the puppet show with some of my buddies. That blew up. Snoop Dogg started sharing our stuff. Different celebrities started catching on. And then, man, I just think of ideas and then I just go with them.
I love that, man. That's like, honestly, like it's a creator's dream, right? But I don't want to minimize it by calling it a dream, because you worked your ass off to get here, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want people. That's one thing I want to make sure that all these conversations we're having with folks. One of the reasons I want to share your journey is because I want people to know it wasn't just an overnight success, right?
Oh yeah, no,
It's not.
I would say it was 2 years of me doing it without even being paid a cent before it even took off. And then even once it took off, once we had the viral video, I was working like my schedule at the time. I was a single father of 2 kids. I had my kids all the time, lived on my own, could barely afford my apartment. But you know what? I had to get up at 6 a.m. to take my kids to daycare. Then I had to go to work, come home, cook my kids dinner. And as soon as I got them laid down around 8 o'clock, I would animate from like 9 o'clock until 2 a.m, knowing I have to get back up at 6 a.m. to get them to daycare. It was a super tough journey, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I feel like that journey is what taught me how to continue to do that. Like there's times where now, things start moving slow. While we're waiting on Amazon, we don't have any content coming out because we're trying to, get something together for the big content. And, things get a little rough, but I know that grind, and I know what it took to get to where I'm at now. And I know if I just tap back into that, keep creating different ideas, keep grinding the way I did, when I didn't have much, I know, things will come back full circle.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I mean, and that's the key, right? Is like that perspective, that mindset you had wasn't like, oh, I tried it, it didn't work, so I'm giving up, right? Like you kept going and it kept building and growing. And anybody can hit one viral video, right? That's that part is maybe luck, right? But the fact that you capitalized on that and kept growing, kept working at it, right? Like you didn't give up. Anyone could. You had a million excuses to give up. Waking up at 6 a.m., going to bed at 2 a.m. That alone is gonna eliminate 80% of people right
Yeah.
there, right? Then
Yeah,
on top of that,
there was so many times I wanted to give up. Like Kristen, who was with me, my
mhm,
sister, she's always she can tell you. I used to text her almost every week, like, man, I don't think I can keep doing this. People aren't watching the videos. Like it's this, it's that. She would always tell me, like, hey, don't give up. The next video is gonna be it. And it wasn't the next one, and it wasn't the next one. But you know what? We would keep doing it and keep trying it. And then eventually it worked. I think that's where a lot of people stop because they think after 100 videos, it didn't blow up. Why am I doing this? You
yeah,
don't know. It might be 400 before you get to where you want to go. Everybody's journey is different. And that's another thing I try to remember too. Just because I'm saying it took me 2 years, it could take somebody 5 years, it could take somebody 10 years. And me personally, I still don't feel like I'm where I want to be yet. Like I've had the viral videos, I've had this, I've had that, but the dreams and the goals that I have are so large that I don't think I'll truly be satisfied until I have that Cartoon Connect Studios channel on TV, or the animation studios like as big as Disney. Like,
yeah.
man, the sky's the limit with it. So, man, a lot of people give up too soon, not knowing that their journey could take a very long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I forgot who said it now, but maybe it was Gary, actually, Gary Vaynerchuk. But I mean, I know someone said at some point it was like, you gave up. What if you gave up right the night before you're gonna make it, right?
Yeah, that's what
And
I'm
imagine,
afraid of.
yeah, imagine that thought, right? How much does that like eat at you, right? Like you gave up
Yeah.
the night before that was supposed to happen, right? That it was gonna happen that next day, and you just like, I gave up. I'm done. You know?
Yeah, and that's one of my fears. So I think that's what stops me from being like, you know what, keep going, keep going, keep going. Because I'm like, man, what if I was supposed to wake up tomorrow and do the same exact thing, and then that was the day that it was going to happen, but the day before I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. So I like fear that. So that's another thing that keeps me going because I don't know. I couldn't live with it if I just, like if I realized that it was getting ready to be my time and I gave up before. Like that's, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I hear you, dude. That terrifies the hell out of me too. But I think going to fear for a second, right? Like a motivation and what motivates us to keep going. You talked about goals and like the big goals you have, right? But then the fear as another motivator for you, because there's two
Yeah,
things motivate us, right? Desire and fear, right? You
yeah,
have those big goals, those desires you have, right? But you also have a little bit of fear, which I think is healthy. I think people tend to let fear control, right? And that
yeah,
if fear is the only motivator, you're not gonna be able to go where you want to go, right? But if
yeah.
fear is there's a healthy amount of fear. That's it's okay to have that much fear. I think that sounds like you got that balance going for you, right? Like, what were some fears you overcame along the way? As you were going through your journey.
I think one of the main fears was you hear a lot of people saying creators who fall off. And I think a part of that bothered me a lot because I ran up 1 million and plus followers so fast.
Mm,
I gained a following so fast, and then things happened where I had to kind of switch direction and try different things. Like when I came up with the puppet show, I was actually at a time where the animations weren't, people weren't watching as much. I mean, I still get views, here and there, but people weren't watching as much as they did when I would get 1 million views a day. So you hear people saying, "Oh, such and such fell off," and I think that was like one of the main fears is like, man, what if I do fall off and I have to go back um, to working or doing something I don't want to do. But with me continuing to try new things and not giving up, here and there, that's how the puppet show got started. I didn't, necessarily know that it was going to blow up, but I knew I had to keep trying something different. So it's like a healthy amount of fear. I feel like daily when I get up and I get ready to work on this stuff, my mindset is, man, this goal that I have is kind of scary, but you know what? It's time to get to it. Because if I don't, then it won't happen. So I try to keep that healthy balance of fear and being motivated by listening to different motivational speakers and stuff like that.
yeah. No, I think that's important to note too. And again, that fear of like falling off, I think that's a fear a lot of creators fall into, right?
Yeah,
And like you said, a healthy amount of fear, like I think that's healthy because that way you keep yourself going, but you don't ever feel like you're like, oh, let me coast, right? Let me just let it go now. I think that's where the people kind of fall off, where they're like,
yeah,
oh, I've made it, so I'm good at whatever I create. Like I think about folks like for example, a great example of somebody who kind of had those roller coasters, Eminem, right? Like
yeah,
there was a time when he was like on top of the world, right? And then he had made a couple albums. One of them was like kind of like a little lower, and then he kind of just like coasted. Then he came back strong, and was like, "Yo, I realized that I messed up, and I wasn't really, trying as hard as I could have, but now I'm back, right? I'm really gonna put my everything into it, because you
Yeah.
lost sight of what it was." And I think, especially for creatives, right? People like you and I. I mean, I do not to the same level as you, obviously, but I create my own stuff, right? But it's where it's like, if you give up, if you stop trying to get better and stop trying to build, and you're like, oh, I'm good enough, you're going to decline eventually, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where it happens. I think it's when you get when you lose sight of what's going on too. Because I think when the cartoons started slowing down, I think I had this whole thing where it's like, oh, I'm Cartoon Connect. People are watching this, millions of views. Like, it's going good. And then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I can work on some other stuff, or I can chill and I can do this. And I realized once you start getting that feeling of before, I was doing it for fun. I was having fun with it. I was upgrading things. I was doing this. I was doing that. Then it got to a point where I was just doing it because that was my job. I think that's when it took a turn, because I got too comfortable, and that's when I'm starting to realize in this space, you can't really get comfortable, especially if you have big goals that you want to go for. You have to continue to keep grinding the same way you did when you got started, because if not, that's when things start to kind of slow down.
Yeah, complacency is the killer of all business, man. I'm telling you, like when companies, even you look at some of these companies, airlines are a great example, right? Like they
Yeah.
just stop. They don't care. Like, oh yeah, we'll get clients no matter what. So we're not customers. We don't care about innovating. We don't care about delivering good service. Just screw you. You got to fly
Yeah.
somewhere, so we don't always gonna do it. That's when you tend to alienate your audience, right? And people don't follow you as much. But as you were talking, I'm thinking about like when you're sitting there creating, right? What gets your creative juices flowing? Like what do you? Some people have like a routine they'd get to before they start drawing or writing or whatever. Do you have something like that, or is it just kind of you just kind of sit down and just kind of do it?
I don't think I have anything specifically like that, but I do have certain things that I do to kind of get me pumped up and get me going.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things, I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers. Like, that's probably what I start my day off with. As soon as I get up, get myself together, as I'm getting dressed, I'm putting something motivational on. That kind of helps me out. Another thing, just spending time with my family and hanging out with my kids, I start realizing, how much they motivate me. And then I think another thing that really does it is movies. Like, animated movies. Me and my kids and my wife, we go see everything, because just even if it's something I don't really want to see, I'm paying attention to the animation.
Yeah.
Like the new Across the Spider-Verse movie that just came out. I love those movies, and the animation is like top tier. So we go and see a lot of stuff like that. So as soon as we got done watching that, I'm like, yeah, it's time to animate.
I love that. Yeah, that stuff is definitely inspiring, man. Because I love. I haven't seen the second one yet, but I saw the first one was awesome. It was amazing.
Yeah,
It was better than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, the second one is just as good. Like,
Okay.
and the animation is even better. Like, they come with so many different styles. There's so many little things here and there that you'll see the first time you see it, then the second time you see it, you like, oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yep.
But that's just the animator and me pointing out everything.
That's important though, right? That's the stuff that gets us excited, right? Like the little
Yeah.
things, the little like touches you don't notice. Like my fiance makes fun of me because I love little stuff, right? I love like little touches in it, whether it's movies, TV, or what is like just like products, services, whatever, right? Like little things get me excited sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I love watching anime or animated shows or whatever, and like because I'm a big anime guy, right? So I love anime.
Yeah.
But watching stuff and I'm like, oh, that's really cool how they just made that effect happen or whatever, and it's like. And she's like, why do you get excited about this shit? I'm like, because it's really cool. Like, it's like,
Yeah. And
it's
then
difficult to do.
I break it down, because I'm like, how long it took them to do that small part?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
from the sketching to the in-between shots to make it look fast, or like, it's crazy how like the process that it takes to make that stuff. So when I see something like just mind blowing, it could be the smallest thing. I'm like, yo, I'm like that. I get hype about stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know if do you watch anime at all?
Yeah, well, there's still a bunch of them I haven't got a chance to watch. I've been watching Dragon Ball Z since a kid.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I've seen a little bit of Demon Slayer. I've seen a little bit of My Hero Academia, not enough to be able to tell you everything that's going on, but I've definitely, put it on while I'm animating. But Dragon Ball Z, I've seen a lot of. Like, I
Yeah.
watched that. That was the first anime I've ever started
Oh wow.
watching. And
I love Dragon Ball Z back in the day, man. I haven't watched the
yeah,
new one, the Dragon Ball Super. I haven't
I
watched that
haven't
one.
watched that one yet either. I
Okay.
really, I'm honestly tonight, I think when I'm animating, I might put the movie on that
Yeah.
came out. I think it was like last year,
Oh,
because I still haven't seen that.
like the new Broly movie, right? I think that's what that's
I
what's that
seen
one?
that one, but there's one more after that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it wasn't last year. I think that was maybe like 4 or 5 months ago it came out.
I haven't followed the new stuff new Dragon Ball Z
Yeah,
at all,
I
actually.
need to check that out because I feel bad. I'm like, I've been watching this since like, I'm telling you, like a kid. Like I remember walking home from first grade watching Dragon Ball Z. So um, I'm like, man, I'm slacking. I got to get back on it.
Man, I remember those were I watched it back in high school. I love that show. But one thing that annoyed the hell out of me was when Goku was on that damn bridge for like 35 episodes.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely dragged that out.
I'm like,
I
come
was
on,
like, all
man.
right. It's like
Uh,
you knew what was gonna happen every episode. You like, he's still here.
yep, he's still on the damn bridge in the clouds. He's on it. He'll do 10 episodes and he's still there. It just feels like I was like, come on, man. Like, but the reason I ask about anime though is because have you seen Your Name, Kimi no Nawa? It's a
No,
movie. Okay, check that. As an animator, I think you would appreciate the hell out of that. That
yeah, I got to
movie.
check that out.
So Makoto Shinkai is, I think he was the one who made it. Those movies are phenomenal, right? Because the
Yeah,
realism is unbelievable. It's an anime movie, but like you look at that, look the animation, the art and the art quality, it looks like a photo of Japan,
yeah,
of like actually like the train stations and whatever, and like the way the thing moves, the animation itself looks so realistic, it's unbelievable. And so I was watching it and I was talking to my fiance. I was like, oh, this part, well, you got to watch this part. It's really cool because there's actually a part where they just for that one part to capture the dance. There's like a dance in the scene,
yeah.
and it's like a traditional Japanese dance. And this girl, they did a motion capture just for this dance to get it exactly right because
Wow.
it's so like specific in the movements and whatever.
Yeah,
And you can tell, I mean, you can tell because you're an animator, but you can tell like those moments where they like change the way that's animated, like the frame rate or whatever changes a little bit,
yeah,
and you can see like something changed. That's the one of those scenes when it happens, and it's like, oh shit, that's freaking cool. And
yeah. I
I think
gotta
you'd love
check
it.
that out.
Yeah,
I've been noticing like some like even with like the new Dragon Ball Z movie, just from the previews and stuff I've seen. I love how it goes from like a 2D animated like anime to where they have this new stuff where it goes from like a 2D scene and then it looks 3D for a minute and then it
yep.
goes back to 2D. Like I get so hyped from seeing stuff like that.
Oh yeah, no, it's super cool. And then also in that same movie I told you about, they actually did, and this I know they actually animated this because I was reading about it. They actually animated a 360 camera pan around the
Wow.
character, which you know how hard that is to do, right? Like
Yeah.
it was continuous and it's beautiful though. I think you'd love it if you watch it. You check it
Yeah.
out.
When you get a chance, could you possibly send me like a link to like
Yeah,
yeah, I gotta check that out.
absolutely. I think you'd love it, man. Yeah, it's cool. Like I said, I geek out on that kind of stuff because I used to draw as a kid.
Yeah.
I still draw sometimes, but mostly now I did some graphic design and whatever. Now I mostly just write and then I do some like design stuff, just like literally to kind of picture my characters in my head or what are they going to look like, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't do like any deep stuff like actual animation and that kind of thing. But I appreciate it because I love it and I grew up with it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's something I need when I'm doing my animation sessions because I get super motivated about stuff like that.
Oh yeah, dude. And then there's a lot of like just interviews with him where he talks about his process and stuff like that. Like, and it's just really, it's really cool. He's one of that's the kind of creative mind that I like aspire to be one day, where like you can on the one side you have this creative vision of what you want to create, right? But then you
Yeah.
also have the facilities and the resources to bring it to fruition. That's the second part,
Yeah,
right?
that's what like with Cartoon Connect Studios, that's what I want to be able to have one day. Like I can sit here and think of something and then animate it myself, but that's gonna take me 2, 3 weeks, maybe a
Right.
month, maybe 2 months. I wish I could have that space to where I'm like, okay, this is my idea. Here, I'll give you the sketch real quick. Like, let's make this happen. Like with a team of people, like that's my end goal. Like I really want to have a studio like that. We can keep creating content and just create all of these crazy ideas that I come up with.
Hey man, not that far away from me. I mean, you got the Amazon deal. That's step one. That's huge, bro. So,
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully
that's such a
soon.
blessing because just coming from doing this on YouTube to being able to get that approval and like, hey, Amazon Video, your show is able to watch here, to be able to go on a platform that people like millions of people use daily. Like YouTube, don't get me wrong, millions of people watch YouTube,
Yeah.
but the stuff like you can watch just content on YouTube. When you get to Amazon Video, it's like I feel like it's still content, but it gives a whole different like feeling to it. So it's man, it's such a blessing to be able to have that opportunity from coming from just animating stuff on YouTube.
Absolutely, man. I can only imagine. Actually, that's a good question. I'm curious about now that you mentioned that. Is like, how is the process different working doing it for Amazon versus do it for YouTube? Like, was there a difference in your process, or was it like did they require anything on the Amazon side that you can talk about? Obviously, confidentiality.
So it was a little bit different because this first season that we have on Amazon actually came from YouTube. Like it was we started off with 2-minute episodes and then we
Mhm.
would kind of upgrade here and there. But once we got to the point where it felt like the YouTube views were kind of like stagnant, we were like, you know what, maybe it's time to take that next step. So let's make longer videos. So we started doing 10-minute videos. So then once we got to the idea to get it on streaming platforms, we were like, well, what if we take two of our 10-minute videos, which would give us around 20, 22 minutes. Let's
Mhm.
turn these into full episodes and let's submit it to these streaming services and see how it goes. And luckily we signed a partnership with Malaco Records. So this is a record label that deals with like big name artists. It's a gospel label, but
Mhm.
they work with different artists to clear the music. So Kanye West had to go through this record label to clear songs on the Graduation album and
Wow.
Trippie Redd and like different artists. So they have a lot of connections. So I think it was perfect timing for us to start working with them. And then they helped us, submit it to Amazon. And yeah, so it's basically just the YouTube season, but this new season that we're working on is exclusively for those streaming services. I think we will have it on, YouTube when we get a chance, but I think we're animating it specifically for that. I think the toughest part is sitting down and animating a 20-minute episode before putting it out.
Yeah.
That's tough. The 10-minute episodes we could do, in like 2 weeks and be like, okay, cool. But these 22-minute episodes are kicking my butt.
It's a lot, man. I mean, again, I don't think people realize how much goes into actually animating
Yeah.
storyboard, like all that stuff together. And then like when you got to put it all together, that's a whole nother piece, right? You got to
Yeah.
sounds and
And then
everything.
I don't think people understand too that animation is tough because it's so hard to just sit down and animate. Like say I'm having a bad day, say I have like a family emergency or something happens. Honestly, I'm still required to sit down and animate, and it's
Yeah.
so hard to do that when your mind's not there. So I have to explain that to people sometimes too, because I can't. Every morning I have to do that motivational, regiment to try to get my mind moving in that direction. Because if I wake up and I'm just not feeling good, it's so hard to sit down at that computer and draw for hours.
I can't imagine. I mean, like we talked about mindset earlier. I mean, that definitely affects your mindset, and
Yeah,
if you're not, especially as a creative person, and I keep saying this, but it is different, right? When you're a creative person, what you're feeling goes into your art,
yeah, and
whatever
if you're
that art.
feeling good, you can tell the difference in when you're feeling good and when you're motivated. Your product is going to be way better.
Yeah, I mean, because it's all somatic, right? Like if you're thinking about something that's negative, people actually study this. Like, it comes across in your handwriting, right? If you're in
Yeah,
a good mood or a bad mood, right? And same
yeah,
thing's true with drawing. Like your strokes are gonna be different. The way you round things out is gonna be different, right? Like it
yeah. The way
changes
the
ever so
characters,
slightly.
like the way the characters move, will be different. Like,
Mhm.
I can tell certain scenes where I, wasn't really feeling it, or certain scenes where I was in a good mood because it's like, oh shoot, look at that detail. Like I probably, was feeling it when I did that.
Yeah, because it gets you excited, right? You're like, oh, that
Yeah,
was great. I felt good about that one, or like I was really in a good mood when I wrote this one scene, right? And I think back to my novel, and I'm like I can remember when I read through it again, I was like, oh yeah, this part I wasn't really feeling great in this
yeah,
part because yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna tell anybody what that part was because I don't want them, but yeah, it's just one of those things, man. Like again, it comes through it's almost like a transparency thing with creative, right? Because it's like you can see in the art how this person's feeling, and it's really cool. At the same time, it does put a lot more pressure on the creators, right? So
yeah. It does because there's times where I need to have scenes done, and I'm like, man, I was not feeling it. So then I'm animating it last minute, and it might not be, as well to other people. It's still great because I make great work, but to me, I'm like, man, what if I would have added a little bit different, what I'm saying, movement here or
Yeah.
there. Other people don't really notice it all the time, but sometimes for me, I'm like, man, I wish I was, my mindset was a little more, was a little better when I did that part.
Yeah, because your standards for yourself are going to be higher than other people's standards
Yeah.
for you, right? Like they're like, oh, this is amazing, this is great, and you're like, yeah, no, I could have done better than that. In the back of your head, like I could have done. Or sometimes you're also just being ultra critical of yourself, just because that's who we are sometimes, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So as you're thinking about this, I mean, you talked about Dragon Ball Z and a couple of things as you were a kid, like growing up. What were some inspirations like for your art style and the way you draw, and if you have any like that you think of, right? What made you want to start drawing?
This probably sounds so crazy. One of the first things that really inspired me was the Captain Underpants book series. As a kid, I used to read those, and the two main characters they had their own comic book company called Treehouse Comics, and they used to just hang out and draw comics all day long. And that's what I really wanted to do at first, was draw comics. But it was just something about reading them, like basically creating their own thing, like from nothing. Like they just had notebook paper and they were creating comics, taking them to school, selling them. That motivated me, and I would go to school, like even in my earlier days before I started creating content at school. I used to go to school and then wood shop. I used to make these like wooden necklaces, like, and design them there, and I would sell them at school for like $5. Like I'd always been selling art, but it was something about that book that just kind of made me realize, like, and of course it's just a children's book, but they made it seem like it was like so easy to like just come up with an idea, create it, and put it out there.
Yeah.
So even to this day, like my son loves the Captain Underpants book series, Dog Man, and I even look through those books because I'm like, this is what really got me started in like drawing. And of course, I do things different now, but that was like where it all started.
Yeah, no, I love that, but I love that so much because I have a similar story about selling stuff in school, selling art. Except I got in trouble. So I used
I
to,
I got in trouble towards the end because I would make like these necklaces, and somebody got carried away. They paid me like $15 for a wooden
oh
necklace
wow,
like this big, and then that's when the security was like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore."
yeah, I used to draw my own characters and stuff like at school, right? And I used to draw like a mix, like I had Mortal Kombat characters and like whatever, but I also had my original characters. I used to draw, and I'd sell them at school because people were like, "Oh, I love that. How much was that drawing?" I'm like, I don't know, 50 cents. It was like, all right,
Yeah,
cool. And can you color for me? Like, I can color for you. It's another 50 cents. Like, it's $1. So I was
yeah,
like, okay, there's a market here, right? So I started selling black and white drawings for 50 cents and color ones for $1. And then I started having like my friends. I was like, okay, I draw them and I just have them color it. So like, I give you
yeah. So
$2 for that.
hey, it was moving. You
Yeah,
had the whole production going.
dude, it was fun. It was actually really cool. We did it for like 3 months, and then the guidance counselor found out, and she was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." I'm like, "What's up?" She's like, "You can't sell stuff on school property." And I'm like, oh, I thought that was fine. Okay, cool. No worries. So I started selling them on the buses, school
Yeah,
buses. And then she's like, yeah, that's still cool school property. You can't do that. I'm like, God damn it. Killing my
it's
entrepreneurial spirit.
yeah, it's really crazy that, yeah, well, it's not crazy because I get what they're saying, but in school you can't, like, that stuff isn't allowed, and you would
Yeah.
think like, drawings is, it's harmless, but yeah, they're kind of strict about that. I know a lot of people who would sell like candy in school.
Yep.
um yeah, but it's crazy because I started out like I did drawings, I did the wooden things. I used to make music and sell my CDs at school. Like
That's awesome.
even after getting in trouble, I would keep going, but
Yeah.
eventually it came to a stop.
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, they scare you into stopping, right? But to your point, though, I wish they did teach more of that, like in terms of like, how do you run a business, right? How do you
Yeah,
actually start something if you don't want to work for somebody else? There's another path. Like, I
yeah, for
remember
sure.
like career day when I was in like fourth grade. There's a guy, one of the parents came in, and they were like, "Yeah, he's an entrepreneur." And I'm like, "What's an entrepreneur? That sounds kind of cool, And
Yeah,
not just because it's French, it sounds kind of cool just because of the idea of it, right? It's like not working for anybody else. Like you're your own boss. You can do that, right? because I never thought about it. 'Cause my parents
Yeah,
both
and
work.
they don't tell you you can do that in school, like,
No.
either. They gear you up to feel like you have to go to college and have, like, a specific, like, thing. So when I went to college for graphic design, it was because I didn't know you could just be an artist, like an entrepreneur. I didn't
Yep.
like I had to learn about business after videos went viral and stuff like that. So I feel like it would be cool if they kind of taught that, kind of taught that stuff in school, or kind of like helped you gear up to kind of do that if that's something that you wanted to do. I feel like that's the only thing that well, not the only thing, but I feel like that's something that school is missing. Because when I left high school, I thought I had to be a graphic design artist. I didn't know there was any other type of art jobs or different ways that I could make money doing that. I thought I had to go for that specific thing.
Yeah, no, I think part of it's also just like if people found that out, then they would, no one would work for somebody else, right? They just do their
Yeah,
own thing.
that
You
is
know?
true. And you know what's with like COVID, how COVID happened, and then a lot of these jobs don't have workers.
Yep.
A lot of it came from people spending that time in COVID, realizing that there's so many different things they could do, like
Yeah.
from home or with their own talents. That I feel like COVID really kind of changed the game with that.
Oh, absolutely. It was a self-awareness year, right? Everybody kind
Yeah,
of was forced, whether they wanted to or not, they were forced to be more self-aware about, okay, how am I spending my time? Who am I spending my time with? Is this
yeah,
how I want to live my life, right? And you know, the answer to that question was very uncomfortable for a lot of people. But on the flip side, right? Like I think the other part of it, which to me is kind of is kind of a double-edged sword of this whole thing, right? Which is like not everybody's cut out to be a business owner, right? Like to our
yeah,
earlier conversation, you didn't give up, right? You were working your ass off like constantly throughout, for years, right, to make this a success. And not everybody has that tenacity. Not everybody else is able to jump in and say like, I'm going to keep
yeah,
pushing at this and work for something, right? Because they don't ever take the time to do that. There's a lot of entitlement and whatever right now in the world, right? And people feel like they deserve something without having to work for it. So
yeah.
I think
And
if there's
it's
that
crazy because honestly, even to this day, I don't really like I have a business, but I'm not the greatest. Like I don't know everything about business. Like I feel like a lot of what kind of keeps my business afloat is the fact that I'm so like consistent to keep doing it. Like even when things are going bad, I'm like, okay, let me figure the next thing out. Let me keep going. I think that's I heard a quote where it's like you I think it was from Eric Thomas too. He was like, you might be smarter, you might be better, but you won't outwork me.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I go by too, because business, man, kind of scares me. Like, but I do it. But I think it's my work ethic that kind of keeps me going, because there's a lot of things I don't know, here and there, and I'm figuring out as I go. But you definitely won't outwork me. Like that's something I'm gonna get up and keep
Absolutely.
doing, like regardless.
Yeah, and that's really the differentiating factor, right? Is that you're really willing to work for it, work harder than the
Yeah,
next person. And again, that's going to be what takes people to the next level, right? Not like the idea of like, oh, I got a great idea. There's a trillion great ideas, right? But
yeah.
it's, are you willing to put the effort and work in to make that a reality? And you did, which is amazing.
Hey, thank you.
Absolutely, man. I'm gonna close with the last question for you, and this is something I ask everybody, like I told you earlier, right? Like, who has been the biggest inspiration to you as a person, or a book or movie, TV show, whatever? What comes to mind when you think of the biggest inspiration in your life to you being where you are right now?
The biggest inspiration, I think, hmm, it's a couple of different things. If I pick a person, I would say it's my cousin Quentin. He From when I was little, he always kind of like showed me the right way to do things. Like even with coming from where we came from, I seen him go through a lot of things and continue to keep pushing no matter what was going on. And we came from the same environment, so to see him do that, that was it. Really stuck with me, and that's like one of the people I look up to. Movies, when it comes to animation, Into the Spider Verse, Across the Spider Verse. Um, the animation is amazing. That's something that I look up to movie wise. Books. I think there's a book that I read. from Eric Thomas. One of his first books, I think it's called The Secret to Success. That book really resonated with me a lot.
Nice. That was awesome, man. I appreciate the time today, dude. Anything else you want to leave folks with? Messages, thoughts, feedback, anything that you want people to know if they're on the journey you're on?
To just keep pushing. It gets hard. It's not easy. This journey of being an entrepreneur, being a content creator has been a roller coaster, but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything else. And even when things are going well, like today kind of started off rocky with some YouTube stuff that I was working on, but you know what? I'm like, it gets better. I've been through this before. Stuff has happened here and there. I'm gonna just keep pushing and keep working. So definitely don't give up on your dreams, because like we said earlier, tomorrow could have been that day. That it goes for you. And I got a lot of stuff coming. I'm working on that season of Lil Ron Ron. Hopefully, should be on Amazon Video very soon. More puppet show videos. The group Cottonmouth, little kids be like videos. People love it. I got personal cartoons that I'm working on. I also make the rugs. It's just so much stuff that I'm working on. If you check my Instagram out, you'll see I'm always posting something different.
Awesome, brother. Absolutely. I'm gonna put everything down below. All Brandon's contact information will be in the description below. His Instagram, his YouTube, and hopefully soon links to the YouTube to the Amazon Prime Video series that he's doing right now for them. So, Brandon, thank you again so much, man. It's been really a pleasure talking to you today.
Hey,
thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you're busy as hell, so I really appreciate it. And yeah, everybody, reach out to Brandon. You got any questions about this kind of stuff? You want to reach out and support him. Awesome dude, as you can tell. And thanks a lot again, man.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, man. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, you too.